you're going to be putting in an escrow. Now, that default, it says if left blank, 3. The default is 3 days. So I just had a client who can't get to the bank till Saturday, so I had to put in 5 days. Basically, I put in 3 and then ended up having to ask for an extension because he didn't tell me he couldn't get to the bank in the middle of the week. So, but this is, by default, it would be 3 days. I don't like to leave blanks in contracts, so I always put them in, even though there's a default. Deposit. Under normal circumstances, you're going to put in roughly 1% of the value of the house, is my rule of thumb. That's what I was taught. It seems to work pretty good. So a $100,000 home, $100,000 is adequate. $200,000 home, $2,000. Cash deals, sometimes they'll ask for a little bit more down, so you have some skin in the game. But for a $3 million house, putting down, $40,000, for your goodwill is not unheard of. I like commas, by the way. And the title company. So a lot of times, and you go here, if they're really good and they're trying to make it easy to sell their home, you're going to find in the matrix that they will tell you to use title company. You'll see it in the realtor remarks. But here, in this case, the title company information is attached. So in your MLS, anytime they attach documents, you're going to see at the top this little paper clip. Pull up that little paper clip, and it's like, oh, yeah, look, we got a comprehensive rider, we've got home feature sheet, we got a seller's disclosure, that's going to be important, and all the title wiring instructions are here as well. So we got provincial title, here it is right here, all right at the top. Provincial title, we got phone number, fax number, email address, all of that will go in here. Now, there'll be a lot of times you'll be looking at something and they don't provide a title. You're not supposed to leave that escrow information blank. So I put in our own. I put in Orlando, West Orlando, Equitable Title, West Orlando. Their address, we have it on business cards and stuff here too. So I will put it in, I'll put in our own. I will never leave it blank. Some people will put in TBD, it's frowned upon. I don't know anyone who's ever been called out on it, but I'm told time and time again not to do it, it's frowned upon. So that's what I'm telling you. So in this case, it's provincial title. And sometimes you might actually be given a point of contact. In this case, no. But if you did, you could actually put it, we can close that. If you did, you could actually provincial title, and then you could put the contact name in there. And then the address. So we've got, I wonder if we can cut and paste this. Sweet G. Look at that. And that was, in Orlando, Florida. It's kind of nice. A lot of times now PDFs are intelligent enough to be able to do that. So the phone number and the fax fax. So the fax is important. Oddly enough, when you're working with Carmen, she'll be looking for the fax information because she'll fax your commission letter to them. She does it because she has proof of the sending once it's sent away, and then she'll call and confirm. And not always will she send you a copy, so you'll need to follow up. You'll just want to make sure that your commission letter has gotten to the title company. Here we go. You want to make sure your commission letter got to the title company because you want to get paid at closing. If you don't do anything, the title company will send a check to Ameritine, which will take however many days. Ameritine will deposit it, and it's 3 days before they even write you a check. With a direct commission letter, you can fill in all the pertinent information, double check it, make sure the math is good with your commissions and who's paying what, and they'll cut you a check right at closing. So you go there with your client, you're closed, shake hands, take a few pictures, now you get your check in your pocket and off you go. Some title companies, not all, some will do direct deposit, which means they're not handing you anything. You walk out, it's already in your bank account by the time you get home. So it's nice to have options, but it gives you that level of control, and they're willing to do it here. All right, so in this particular case, we're not doing anything extra. There's no extra deposit. This isn't an auction or bidding or anything like that, so we don't have to come up with extra money unless there's some pre-agreement. And the financing. So some people, you can actually put in the percentage. Maybe they're doing 80% financing. Maybe it's more, and then basically you do the math for what's left. So if it's 80% financing, somebody got a calculator? What would that amount be?
$3,400. 3,400,000. Sorry.
No, it's 3 million now. So what is?
Three.
Oh yes, 3 million.
4 million. 3,400,000.
400,000 is what they're financing. And okay, so what's 20%?
600,000.
So 600,000 is 20%. Minus the 40 they already put down. So it's really, they're going to have to bring to the table 560,000. Okay, and no others, so that's 0. No other fees. Okay, so we've got our money in there. Time for acceptance, well, let me see. Today's date, we'll have everything signed today. Default here, you'll see here is 2 days, and 2 days from now is Friday, so yeah, we want a feedback by Friday. If you're in a pinch and you want it tomorrow, you can do that too. And then closing should go pretty simple, so 30 days from Friday, you could bring it to April 13th. I hate Mondays. Try to avoid Monday and Friday closings for all the obvious reasons. So, Tuesday's fine, or Thursday, as long as it's close. Now you see at the bottom, here, hold on. At the bottom of the first page and at the bottom of every page, you'll see these places with the initials. Jack Nicholson's initials are already in there and assigned to him, as well as our two sellers. So that was already auto-filled. You don't even have to assign those. But we've completed a page, so we're going to save. These things don't auto-save. So we go down. So that's page 1. It's pretty much lighter from here. Information on what happens if you have to extend the closing date, if you have to worry about leasing or occupancy or anything like that. None of that. Generally, you don't have to worry about that. Item 7 or line 77 here, assignability. There used to be a time where somebody could actually start the paperwork, get it going, get the purchase of the home, and then they assign it to somebody else. And all of a sudden, it's somebody else's contract. So at title, somebody else is purchasing and buying the home. They would sell paper. Not a lot of people are comfortable with that. So generally, you will check that this contract is not assignable. So nobody has to worry about a bait and switch. Okay, number 8 here, financing. If you're paying cash, that's pretty simple. Click A, that's it, they're paying cash. If they're financing, make sure you click that box, yes. And this contract is basically it's contingent upon. So this is your first contingency for your buyer. If the loan doesn't go through for whatever reason, then the contract is nullified, but the buyer gets his money back. It's $40,000 he's put into the deal. Something's fallen through unforeseen. Now, there's an argument that if it turns out that the buyer is just belligerent and not giving the right information, and he causes things to happen, then there could be an argument there. But this is contingent on, he's probably going to be, there might be another lender or conventional loan. This is going to be a jumbo loan anyway, so it might actually be other. But normally you would select conventional or FHA. Term is generally 30 years term. Oh, by the way, you'll find some areas in Florida are eligible for USDA financing. So if somebody was going for a USDA loan, you would select other and put that in this box here.
What's USDA?
It's agriculture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's agriculture.
Properties.
So there are some communities that like, you could do farm, you could raise it, stuff like that. They don't have to be a farm, it could just be in a USDA approved
Yeah.
area that's rural, outside of the city. You get a USDA loan, sometimes they offer better deals.
Have some properties there.
Where?
In Davenport.
Okay.
You'll find them. So you've got conventional, fixed is usually the way we go. Shall not exceed interest rate. You never know what it's going to be. I always put in the word prevail. If left blank, then prevailing rate, whatever it happens to be. And then term is 30 years. So approval of the loan was within 30 days. Financing, the loan will be a 30-year loan. And the buyer shall, line 91, the buyer shall make sure that he's officially applied for the loan within 5 days of the signing of this contract or ratifying the contract. So here we have all of our financing information. That's as much as that is. And save. Next one down, page 3. There's no assumption of existing mortgage. If there was, you'd put it here. If there was a purchase money note where there was an additional rider, somebody else was helping in the financing, maybe seller financing, then you would include that there. Okay, so this is just a list of general what's charged to the buyer and what's charged to the seller. Your buyer, he's going to have to pay a brokerage fee, so we make sure that's in there. So your brokerage fee, $595. Now, the $595 is negotiable. What it used to be was a Maritime charged $640 on a transaction, $295 from the seller or from your customer, it'd be $295 from you out of your commission, and then there's $50 E&O. So this can be a negotiating tool. Somebody looks at this and goes, geez, $595 for broker's fees? You can look at them and go, look, I'll cover half. You know, that's part of what I do, and you can actually use that as a tool. I find that buyers who are buying smaller homes, if you're in under the $100,000 range where the commissions start to get squeezed down, you can ask them to pay for all of it, and that way it's not eating into the commission. there's a lot of ways to do it, but we don't charge more than what Ameritine would normally charge ever.
So what happens to the other $50?
That comes out of your commission, and that'll be part of your direct commission letter too. We'll cover that. And then 15 days basically before close to make sure we're clear of title. So title has time to do that. If it's a cash deals can be done in less than 30 days, sometimes 2-3 weeks tops. So they've got to act a little quicker. You would actually put in 5 here for this line 145. Here, always the seller, unless under specific circumstances. Now, where I told you, where we put in, we don't leave the title company blank. You can call the listing agent and go, hey, I'm putting together an offer. What's your title company? You can do that. Unfortunately, if you just had a long day and you're putting this together, it's 9 o'clock at night, that might not work. So even though you might put in West Orlando title, still seller select, because the seller's on the hook for all of those expenses. They can always come back with a counter and go, no, we're using this title company. And okay, fine, not a problem. But at least you've covered your bases. Miami-Dade, not a concern. They have different rules down there.
Okay, I have a question, please.
Yes.
If the seller decided to change the title company, that means you have to rewrite the contract again, or what?
No, it'll just be an addendum. Yeah, it's just an addendum to the contract. Once the contract's accepted, you can do modifications.
How you do that will be in different sheet?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is signed, you're going down, a week happens, and all of a sudden you realize, oh yeah, they just sent you a sheet going, hey, we're switching title companies. They just need both parties to understand and agree. There's no reason anybody would not agree. Unless the title company was, Big Joe hanging, down the street, whatever, just want to make sure that they're legitimate. Because the buyer's putting a chunk of dough into the title company, they're holding the escrow. Just make sure the title company's legit, a good title company. So, if you were doing something in Miami, and we do have, Alan does have, he's a member of the board of Miami, just be aware that their rules and who furnishes what for title is a little bit different down there. This is all standard stuff. Now, home warranty. So you might be going into a situation where, you know what, just want to make sure that when the house you're buying is good, and when your buyers go in, that they don't have to be on the hook for anything that breaks down within the first couple of weeks that happens. So you can actually get them, you get the seller. Now, we're doing an offer. So just because we put all of this stuff into this, when we send it off, it's not a contract yet. So it's just an offer. So don't be hesitant to ask for things for your clients. Go ahead and ask for a seller's warranty, for a home warranty. The worst they could say is no. And then for most homes, it wouldn't exceed $500 for the cost of a basic coverage. And we use Globe. Home protection.
And for a house like that, $500 will be even? Will be
No, for a $4 million house, you'd actually have to go on, and it's so much, you can go onto the Globe Home website, you can get a quote. If it's over a certain amount of square feet, they'll add certain amounts of dollars. So for a house that size, you might be looking at $1,500. Because there's more than one air conditioner, there's usually multiple zones, so larger homes will have one AC for the downstairs, one AC for the up. Or more, depending on the size of the
I
house.
think 5.
5 air conditioners?
Mhm.
Yeah, so all of those will be extra. So yeah, you can actually go onto the website, Globe Home Warranty. I don't want to get that far off track here. For a standard home, it would be $500, but for something like that, it would be considerably more.
And that will be for a year?
For the first year. And then after that, the owner can choose to continue the coverage and take over the premiums themselves. The seller can say, no, I'm not be up to you whether that's a driving factor or not in your negotiations. Any special assessments? If there are special assessments in a community, like if it's a community development project or something like this, it doesn't include condo, home associations, or anything like that. But sometimes the city or town's doing something, and the seller takes responsibility up to a certain point, and then when the buyer owns it, then he owns the responsibility after that point. Default here, if you look below, if neither box is checked, option A shall be deemed selected. So I just select option A by default and move forward. Save. Now, from here forward, these are standard disclosures. They talk about rate on gas, permits, mold, all of this. The only thing you have here is they'll do seller has 20 days delivering written notice of flood insurance coverage. And you can leave it blank. I try not to leave anything blank. Most of the rest of this is all informational until you get down here. So this is your out. Item 12. This is your inspection period and right to cancel. Now, this is your home. You're going to always recommend to your buyer that they want to inspect the home. Make sure there's no leaks, no wood-destroying organisms like not just termites and carpenter ants, certain molds cause dry rot or wet rot in wood and structures. That's all WDO. Insurance companies will want a 4-point inspection as well that they can do for that, and wind mitigation. Now, a lot of the inspection agencies, you can order the basic and ask them if they, if later down the line everything looks good, can you get the wind mitigation and the 4-point after the fact? And what they'll do is they'll go in and they'll take extra pictures and stuff and prepare for it. They just won't provide you with the information. So if you need it, it saves them from having to return to the home to do extra work and extra money for your client. In this case, you know, if for whatever reason they got it inspected and it fell through, they're not out the full amount of all of that, of all of those reports, just the basic. And so different inspectors work different ways. It's just, you need to make sure that they ask the inspector that that's an option or not.
How much would that typically run the buyer?
Typical homes, 3.2s, you know, anywhere from 300 to 500, depending on, you know, the size of the home. A home like this would be considerably more,
Right.
and they would quote on it. Most people don't like to see it all the way out to 15 days. Most people accept a 10-day window to get your inspector in there. Now, in this particular case, if your inspector goes in and everything's fine, but your client maybe found a couple of things he didn't like or something just rubbed him the wrong way regarding the property, and all of a sudden he wants out, he can get out. You do not need to specify why during the inspection period. If you want to cancel, it's totally up to the buyer.
Before inspection.
During that period, so from the time so it's 10 days from the executed contract. So you're putting an offer, let's say it takes a couple of days, and they come back to you on the 13th and say, yes, we accept this. Or maybe they came back the next day with a counter, and whatever, you've gone back and forth, but you've signed it on the 13th. Whatever the date, the final signature is on there is the day that the contract is considered fully executed. And then it would be 10 days from that date, that's your window to get the house inspected. And, you know, if for whatever reason the buyer doesn't want to do it because of something he found or was uncomfortable with, then he can get out. And that's all. You don't even need to give a reason. It's like, yeah, we don't want this. We had the inspection. We're good. And you get out of the contract. That's what I call, especially with new home buyers. I get young couples. They're nervous. It's their first home. They get scared. I let them know, it's like, you know what, put in the offer, do this. Let's get the offer, especially if some homes go quickly. So you get the offer and just let them know, look, now you got 10 days. We'll go through this, for whatever reason you think this is not gonna work for you, you have 10 days to change your mind. And that usually puts them at ease. It's really kind of a nice way to work with your clients. Okay. More blanket information here, escrow agent. You should read all this, get familiar with it. Because you're gonna wanna sit down with some of your new people and go through it with them. Title examination process, all of the things that they do. All the way down to 9, 10. Here we go. All right. I didn't save prior. So this is where, if there are certain things that you want to add to your contract, addendums that aren't included in the bulk part of the contract, this is where you would consider them. So basically you click here and go, hey, is there a home association? Is there an HOA? So let's go back to, oh my goodness. Oh, here, okay. So is there an HOA in here? Community, yep, there's an HOA with information in it. So, yep, there's gonna be a homeowners association rider attached to this. Now, you might not have it. You won't have an HOA because the seller hasn't provided that. But you need to make sure it's part of the contract, so you're gonna click it here. Also, you're going through financing, so you might wanna get an appraisal on the property. Under normal circumstances, if you've done your comps and you know it seems to be a fair price, that's decent, that's okay. There are instances though where there might be some doubt, but your buyers want it. So you're gonna work with them and say, look, we're gonna get you into the house, but this will be more for the lender to make sure. It's kind of covered up top in that section where you click financing, because if it doesn't appraise and the lender says we're not gonna give you the money, well, then the lender's gonna back out. This is just an extra layer of protection. Let you know that, hey, I'm gonna pay $4 million for a house, it better appraise at $4 million. That's all. So we got our appraisal contingency. Now, if the house was built prior to 1978, yes, lead paint. So you would select your lead paint disclosure here, and that would be part of it as well. If the house was remodeled, and you know the time frame it was remodeled, and I have to go back all the time and check this, but you can Google this, defective drywall, there's a certain period of time, do you remember it? Yeah, but you can Google it, there's a certain period of time where they were using we were short on gypsum for whatever reason, they were ordering the drywall from China, and it was disintegrating on the walls. So the chances are by now, it's mostly gone. All of these other disclosures you want to get used to. Now, or get familiar with. Here's one, sale of buyer's property. Let's say your buyer needs to sell his house first before he can buy this one. It may already be under contract, which is really cool, but this is another rider you'd want to add to it, sale of buyer's property. Now, what I recommend is when you create a test loop or sandbox, call it whatever you want, I'll show you how to go in and add forms, and you can just read them. So you don't have to worry about the next time you actually get that. You can actually create a forms folder and just download all the forms and go through them and read them, get familiar with them. Get familiar with the condo rider and the seller financing and the mortgage assumption and all of those things. That way you'll know what they are when they come up. It's like, oh yeah, we can take care of that. So for here, homeowners association, appraisal contingency, and if there was anything else that you needed to add for whatever reason, you can actually click it here, other, and
I'm sorry, but where can I find the forms?
I'll show you.
Oh, okay.
I'll show you. We're not
Thank
there
you.
yet. Okay, so here, additional terms. Well, you know what? Closing costs and prepaids can be pretty expensive. So, a lot of times, standard practice. Depending on the lender and the type of loan, so for FHA, you can ask for up to 6% of the purchase price. So what that means is that if the purchase $4 million, you can ask for up to 6% of the closing costs, of that value toward closing costs and prepaids, which can get pretty significant. Closing costs, if you need to estimate it in your head, closing costs can be upwards of 3 to 5% of the purchase price. But it varies depending on the lender and such. So it's not uncommon for a concession to say, seller agrees to pay buyer, or credit, sorry, buyer up to 3% of closing costs and prepaids. So, save.
Would it be of or for closing costs?
Of.
Because of would be like 3% of the closing costs they cover.
It's 3% of the purchase price toward closing costs and prepaids. 3%. I've always used of, 3%, up to 3%. Toward. Yeah. Bingo. All right. Down here, the signatures are all good. Look, signatures are already assigned. Boom. Now, if you happen to have the driver's license and you have their information, you would put their particular, where they're living right now, you can put that information in here. And your information goes below because, hey, you're the one writing the contract. So here am I. Luke put me in, and he put Joe Bo in here as well. Save. We're good. And you just did an as-is contract. Now, we'll quickly go through these other things. So here's a seller's property disclosure. We like to see these from homeowners. You can actually go here in this particular listing, and I don't think we need the tax data anymore, but we can always open that up if we do. In this particular listing, we opened up a file, and look, we have a seller's disclosure here, which is really convenient. So I'm going to take that seller's disclosure, put it in my downloads, but I'm going to go ahead and put it up here on my desktop. I'm going to go back to my dot loop because I want my buyer to see this, and I'm going to add it. Browse again. Browse is to get the files off of your computer. I'm going to add that. So I've got a seller's disclosure here, and I'm going to add that below my as-is, and I'm going to archive this blank one, because I just don't need to be staring at it. So now I have a seller's disclosure. Check this out. It's all filled out, right? Or it better be. Let's check it out. Yep, there it is. All clicked off, any information. It's bonded, so this is kind of good information. It's been treated for termites, it's bonded. And those are usually transferable, so that's good information to have.
So you give this to the buyer?
Yes. Now here's the thing. So your buyer wants to read this and show that he's read it. You can actually see here that, look, there's a place here to sign, but there's no box for my buyer. So because it's a PDF from another source, I have to add a box. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to add initials, and I'm going to assign that to our buddy Jack. Boom. And I'm going to do that here as well. Add initials here, assign to Jack. So Jack, when he reads reads this, he's gonna initial at the bottom of each page. And these will be for your records, to show that he's actually received it, read it, and initialed it. Sign, Jack. And down here, now, please pay attention to this. It's a signature page, but it requires an initial anyway, so just go ahead and put that in too. Sign Jack. Boom. Go back up here, and we're going to put Jack's signature box in here. Add signature. And we're going to throw that in here. Now, this is huge. It's a big box. It's a little space. So I'm going to put it here. I'm going to assign it to Jack. And I'm going to check this out. See the little double arrow? I'm going to actually resize the box. You can actually customize it. And then I'm going to add a name. I'm going to put that here, and that's a little box, so I'm actually going to make it a little bit bigger. And that's Jack Nicholson. Boom. Thank you. And you can actually recenter the box or whatever. You can make it nice and pretty, or it's okay. Save it. And there's more. I think there's one more sheet for seller's disclosures. Just look here. No added information, but another initial here that belongs to Jack. And another signature. It all simple. All right. This is all Jack stuff. Okay, Jack. So now we have a great guy who has provided us with a seller's disclosure. Jack Nicholson. Thank you, Jack. Save, and we're gone. It's a good idea for you to read through it too. So that way, if anything jumps out at you, like new roof, that's a good thing, or if there was evidence of, flooding or anything recent like that, there's also a sinkhole disclosure in there too, which is redundant in here. So there's your disclosure. Here's our FHA. If you were going for FHA financing, we would fill this out. There's the initials up here going, hey, yeah, this is an FHA or VA. So there are special contingencies that may cause the loan to fail or succeed, and we need to be mindful of those as well. For FHA financing, inspection, appraisal, it's very rare. But sometimes appraisers, if they need to open up a wall or do something to get behind something, can actually cause damage to a home. You're responsible for that. So you would actually put, if it doesn't exceed 500, you'll take care of it. The cost to the seller for appraisal repair shall not exceed. Some people put it 0. The seller does not want to he does not want to put in any money toward that. So the seller might not want to pay anything, but you put in 100, 500, whatever. It's totally up to you. I put in 0 because I'm dealing with, maybe not for $1 million home, but for something like this. For a smaller home, I might just put in 0. And then here, the property appraisal needs to be at the price. Here you would put the 389. You would put the purchase price of the home, and you would select here for FHA. Now, this might not be FHA, it might be VA. So you wouldn't select that box, you'd select this one down here, and it has to apply for all of the VA, and there's no check boxes or things to fill in there. But you have to sign this one, because you're just one of the parties, and then the listing agent would have to sign as well to acknowledge. Now, this wouldn't be, we're not attaching it to this, but if we were, that's how we would fill it out. An appraisal contingency, again, redundant if you've got an FHA, but I usually include it anyway. Now, I tell people this is the only one I leave blank, because what ends up happening is, and I've seen this, you've got an appraisal contingency, you've renegotiated something, you got a new signed contract, but you didn't update this form. So if you leave it blank, it tells you that, you know, the lender will do appraisal at least 10 days before closing, and if blank, purchase price. So if the purchase price happens to vary on the final, then this just stays with it and you're fine. So all you've done by opening it and autofilling it is just making sure that all of these things are assigned. Save and close. Some people will disagree with me as far as leaving those things blank. It's totally up to you. Here's your lead-based paint disclosure. If it was built before 1978, by law you have to include this, and it's initialed by both parties, here and here. And they read these, check the boxes off, and move down. And you would also have to sign this as well.
What boxes I check?
See, the sellers take care of this information, the buyers acknowledge that,
Oh, okay.
right, and then they have to sign. So they have to initial and sign. Oh, and the pamphlet. Pamphlet is just information. All it is just more information, things people need to know about the effects of lead paint and your family. So there's no signature to be had on there. It's just information, but you will include it. What else? Mold inspection, if you're gonna get a mold inspection, unless I know there was a leak, unless I know there were roof problems and stuff like that, I rarely do that because I've already got an overall inspection, which will, by the way, cover mold. So I don't generally use that. I will tell you that I haven't used it. I think I used it once, but I knew the attic had leaked and we wanted to make sure we were covered. So again, they may have to do some damage, to do some digging, so here we have $500 if repair costs exceed. FERPTA, we're actually supposed to have a class on that coming up. So if you have, if there's a foreign seller involved, he's a national, Great Britain, wherever. We have a lot of that around here. If there's a foreign seller involved, then it falls under FERPTA, which means that the sale of the house, 15% of the sale proceeds have to be held aside for taxes. And there's another company involved with that too. So all the parties need to be aware if the seller is a foreign national. Then this will come into play. And just so you know, if things aren't handled right and the taxes haven't been paid, the buyer will be responsible for the taxes. Here's your defective drywall. Here's a whole HOA disclosure. Now, it's possible that our sellers may have included that, but sometimes they don't. So this ends up just being blank because there's no information in it. So we have this because it's part of the contract. We actually have this. It's going to be, but we're going to have to get it filled out. Or if it's not an HOA, it might be a condo association. And then there's a sinkhole disclosure. But if you've got a seller's disclosure, sinkholes are included in it. So you can ask for that as well. It's just a standard. I don't use the sinkhole. As long as I've got, the other information, I'm good. And this again would be for the sellers to fill out. Bingo. All right. What else? That's it. That's everything in our loop. gotten this signed, so I'm gonna show you here right now, this is what you would do. If you had gotten this signed, and there was a modification that you would have to make to the contract, at this point, at that point, you would add document, but you'd go over here to templates, and you would use the Florida's interactive, and then you would just do a search for mod. And there's your modification to a listing agreement, modification to seller, well, we don't want mod, we want addendum, change. Exchange, 1031 exchange, that was modification. Oh, addendum to contract, that's it, just a standard addendum to contract. You can find most of your contracts here just by knowing the keywords, and the keywords usually make sense. So if you had to write an addendum to contract, well, this is your addendum, and you would, it's pretty generic. You would add your addendum and then fill it out. And whatever it is that needs to change, it could be the terms, it could be change the title company, it could be change a lender, it could be any number of things. Now, keep track of your addendums. Is this addendum number 1? And by the way, the effective date is not the effective date of the addendum, it's the effective date of the contract. So if the contract effective date is the 13th of March, then 13th of March 2020 would go in that spot. All right, so I just showed you the addendum, but the addendum is actually going to go.
Sorry, Alex, can you go back, where do you go to get to the modification to contract?
So we went to, well, and it's, you know, I like to keep my folders organized. So if you add document here, it's going to add it here to this folder. If you add document above, it's going to add it to that folder. So keep your contract stuff together, it just makes it easier for everybody. But you would add document,
Oh, templates, okay.
you would go to templates, and you would go to all the way down and use Florida Interactive. Boom. You'll find everything in here. If you had, let's see, request for repairs, buyer's walkthrough, exclusive buyer brokerage, all of it. All of your active forms are going to be in there. Now you've got all this stuff you're going to send off to your buyer. Basically, you can select all, but some of this stuff isn't actually going off to your buyer. He doesn't need to see that, or that. So you're going to send all of that off to him. You're going to send your contract off to him. Seller's disclosure, we're not doing FHA, I just filled that out, but we did do an appraisal contingency. And we didn't do lead paint or anything like that, so, what was it, the HOA? Yeah, we did an HOA, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna move that up, because that's all, oh, I opened it. So my homeowners, my appraisal, seller's disclosure, we're not doing that. So you can archive. If there's something that you're not using, you can always get it back later, you can archive it. And you don't have to look at it. So we're sending that. Okay, now the homeowners association's blank. I'm not having my customer sign a blank form. But what I do is when I go to send it off to the listing agent, I include the blank form. Hey, I want this filled out. And usually what they'll do is go, hey, we already got it, and then you make sure you get it to your customer, he initials it, and it makes it complete. So sometimes the addendums have to come together after the fact. So we're not using any of the others, I'll just leave them at the bottom. I can archive them or whatever, ignore them. So basically we're gonna send all of those above, we would click those. And then we would click on the ones we're going to send, because we're getting ready to make this offer. I've had the conversation. sign. And we go up here to share. It's gonna come up with this window. So it's all going off to Jack. Jack's got 29 fields he has to be concerned with. He can sign, and I'm gonna attach a PDF just for his convenience. He'll have it, he can just view it without having to go into the tool. So what ends up happening, it sends an invite, and it invites them into .loop. So you're never actually emailing the form, it invites them into .loop, they go into the system, and they do the checkoffs and signatures. And then when they're out, you get notifications, especially if you have your app on your phone. There's a .loop app. All of a sudden your phone will start pinging, and your email will start pinging, and you'll see, oh yeah, I got all my signed documents. At that point, you hit share, and off it goes. And all you gotta do is sit back and, well, notify him. Call your guy or text him, whatever relationship you have, however you communicate. Text him, hey, just sent all the information, read it, review it. If you're comfortable with it, sign it. And if you have any questions, let me know. That's it. That's your contract.
So what's the normal